Today, we're really getting into the machinery of your mind.
Yeah, we are.
Forget wading through decades of research. We want to give you the core operating manual, how your brain makes those super fast gut decisions.
And crucially, why those decisions often lead to these, well, predictable mistakes.
Exactly. Systematic errors.
Right. Our mission here is to understand judgment, decision-making, but not just random flubs. We're focusing on the systematic stuff biases, you know?
Yeah.
They happen so reliably that once you see the pattern, you can almost predict when someone's about to fall into one, maybe even yourself.
Okay, so to kick things off, you got to understand you're not just one single thinker, right? There are these two characters running the show upstairs.
We can call them System 1 and System 2.
Yeah.
Think of System 1 as the automatic pilot.
Okay.
It's fast, effortless, subconscious mostly. It's constantly feeding you impressions, intuitions, feelings. It's where most of your mental life happens, actually.
And System 2, that's the conscious part.
That's the boss, yeah. But often a pretty lazy boss. It's slow, deliberate, needs attention. It does the heavy lifting, complex calculations, focusing, filling out your tax forms, that kind of thing.
The real trick is how they interact, though.
Absolutely. System 1 is always throwing suggestions at System 2.
Yeah.
And System 2, well, it takes effort to scrutinize things, right? It gets distracted easily. So most of the time, it just rubber stamps System 1's ideas, barely even looks at them.
And we know it takes effort because you can literally measure it. I thought that research you mentioned was fascinating.
Oh, it's amazing. They had people doing these really tough mental tasks.
Right.
Like the add 3 exercise.
Where you're juggling numbers in your head.
Right, keeping a string of digits in mind, adding 3 to each one, constantly updating. It's draining.
Yeah.
And they watched people's pupils.
And they dilated like crazy when people were concentrating hard.
Massively, up to 50% bigger. Heart rate climbs, too. They had this projection like a foot wide on the screen showing the pupil. They could pinpoint the exact moment someone hit their cognitive wall just by watching the pupil.
So you could see them give up.
Instantly. Or when the task got easier, the pupil just snaps back. It really confirms that, normal thinking, chatting, that's like a comfortable walk in the park.
A mental stroll.
Yeah, a stroll, but intense calculation, that's a sprint. And System 2, it wants to get back to that stroll pronto.
Okay, so System 1 is fast, efficient, a miracle, really.
Yeah.
But where's the catch?
Yeah.
Where does relying on that easy stroll start to, mess up our judgment?
It happens when System 1 hits a question it finds difficult. It doesn't like to pause and bother System 2.
Right.
Instead, it often does this clever little substitution. It swaps the hard question for an easier one it can answer quickly.
And that's where the biases sneak in.
That's exactly where they live, in that substitution.
Okay, let's unpack one. The classic example you mentioned, the representativeness heuristic, based on resemblance.
Right. So imagine this guy, Steve. He's described as very shy, withdrawn, helpful, but not really into people. A meek, tidy soul, needs order, loves detail.
Okay, got it.
Now, is Steve more likely to be, say, a librarian or farmer?
Well, my System 1 immediately screams librarian. That description just fits the stereotype perfectly.
It does, doesn't it? It's a perfect match to the stereotype. But System 1 completely ignores the base rate, the actual statistics.
We're shocked.
In the U.S., there are something like 20 male farmers for every 1 male librarian, maybe more.
20 to 1. Wow.
Yeah. So even if only a tiny fraction of farmers fit Steve's description, shy, tidy, whatever, there are still going to be way more shy, tidy farmers than shy, tidy librarians, just because there's so many more farmers overall.
But the resemblance, the stereotype is so strong, it just overrides the numbers.
Completely. System 1 goes with the story, not the stats.
Okay, that's representative. What about the availability heuristic? That's about how easily things come to mind.
Exactly. Let's try a quick one on you, the listener. Think about the letter K. Is it more likely to show up as the first letter in an English word or the third letter?
Okay, first letter, king, kite, keep. Third letter, bake, like, ask. It feels much easier to think of words starting with K.
That's what most people find. That ease of retrieval makes your System 1 think, oh, K must be way more common at the start.
But that's wrong.
It is. Letters like K, L, N, R, V, they actually appear more often in the third position, but it's harder work for your brain to search for them there.
So the mental effort or lack of it tricks you.
Precisely. Your brain mistakes ease of recall for frequency. And you see this everywhere. Think about media coverage.
Like plane crashes versus car crashes.
Perfect example. Or maybe you get the feeling that, I don't know, embezzlement is super common among politicians compared to, say, dentists.
Yeah.
Is that based on real data? Probably not. It's more likely because scandals involving politicians get way more press. Those examples are just more available in your memory.
It shapes your intuition about frequency.
And underpinning a lot of this is a really powerful concept summarized by this great acronym, WYSIAD.
WYSIAD. Okay, what's that stand for?
What you see is all there is. System 1 is brilliant at taking whatever scraps of information are available and instantly weaving them into a coherent story. Then it jumps to a conclusion.
Without worrying about what's missing.
Exactly. If I say, Mindik is intelligent and strong, what does your gut tell you about her leadership potential?
Good leader.
Yeah.
Seems obvious.
See? System 1 fills in the blanks. Intelligent, strong, must be a good leader. It doesn't stop to ask, okay, but what else? Is she cruel, corrupt, inexperienced?
It just takes the available info and runs with it.
The coherence of the story feels like truth, even if the story is built on, like, 2 data points. It doesn't care about the missing pieces.
So this love for coherent stories, even flimsy ones, leads us straight into another big error zone. Ignoring statistics.
Yeah, we're really bad with stats. Our minds crave causes. We want explanations, narratives. We don't like mere statistics or randomness.
Okay, give us an example. The kidney cancer rates.
Right. Researchers looked at kidney cancer incidence across the U.S. They found the counties with the very lowest rates were mostly rural, sparsely populated, often in traditional Republican states.
So System 1 jumps in.
And creates a story. It must be the clean living, fresh air, no pollution, organic food, less stress. Makes perfect sense, right? A coherent, causal story.
Sounds plausible. Why is it wrong?
Because they also found that the counties with the very highest rates of kidney cancer were also mostly rural, sparsely populated.
Wait, what? Both extremes.
Both extremes. The real reason isn't lifestyle. It's the law of small numbers.
Meaning?
In a county with very few people, just a few random cases or lack of cases can make the rate look extremely high or extremely low. Small samples just produce more extreme results by chance.
So the small population doesn't cause low cancer rates or high cancer rates?
No, it just allows random chance to look like a meaningful pattern. Our brain imposes a cause where there's just statistical noise due to sample size.
That's subtle. And it reminds me of the flight instructor story, seeing patterns in performance.
Ah, yes. Classic example of misinterpreting randomness. This instructor noticed something. When he praised a pilot cadet for an exceptionally smooth landing,
Yeah.
the cadet usually performed worse on the next attempt. But when he yelled at a cadet for a really terrible landing, the cadet almost always improved next time.
So his conclusion was?
Punishment works. Praise backfires. Seemed obvious from his experience.
But he was falling for a statistical trap, wasn't he?
Completely. He was observing regression to the mean.
Explain that.
An unusually great landing is, well, unusual. Part of it is skill, sure, but part is probably luck. Statistically, the next landing is likely to be closer to that cadet's average performance. It will regress downwards.
Regardless of the praise.
Exactly. And the really bad landing. Same thing in reverse. Probably some bad luck involved. The next attempt is statistically likely to be better, closer to the average. It regresses upwards.
So the praise didn't cause the decline, and the yelling didn't cause the improvement.
No, it was just random fluctuation around the average. But the instructor created a compelling causal story. My yelling works! Out of thin air. System 1 strikes again.
It just shows how desperately we want a cause and effect story, and how easily context and reference points can manipulate our choices.
Which brings us nicely into prospect theory. This is all about how we actually value gains and losses subjectively.
And the core idea is loss aversion.
That's the big one. Basically, the pain of losing something feels about twice as powerful emotionally as the pleasure of gaining something equivalent.
Losing $100 hurts more than finding $100 feels good.
Roughly twice as much, yes. This creates all sorts of interesting effects, like the endowment effect.
Right, the mug experiment. Tell us about that.
Okay, so they randomly gave half the participants a standard university coffee mug. They became the sellers. The other half didn't get a mug. They were the buyers.
Simple setup.
Then they asked the sellers, what's the lowest price you'd sell your mug for? And they asked the buyers, what's the highest price you'd pay to buy one?
And because of loss aversion.
The sellers, who now owned the mug and felt the potential loss of giving it up, typically demanded about twice as much money as the buyers were willing to offer.
Just because they owned it for a few minutes?
Yep. There was also a third group, choosers, who didn't get a mug but were asked how much cash they'd prefer instead of getting a mug. Their price point was low, similar to the buyers. Ownership itself created the value gap. Giving it up felt like a loss.
So value isn't fixed. It depends on your starting point, your reference point, whether you frame it as giving something up or getting something new.
Exactly, which leads directly to framing effects. How you word a choice drastically changes how people respond, even if the underlying options are identical mathematically.
And you mentioned the miles per gallon illusion as a really costly example of bad framing.
Yes, particularly in the US. Using MPG to measure fuel efficiency feels intuitive, but it's actually quite misleading for making decisions.
Also,
Because the fuel savings aren't linear with MPG increases. Think about it. Improving a car from 10 MPG to 20 MPG saves a huge amount of gas over, say, 10,000 miles. You cut your fuel consumption in half.
right, 1,000 gallons down to 500 gallons.
Exactly. Now, what about improving a car from 30 MPG to 40 MPG? That sounds like the same 10 MPG jump, but the actual fuel saving is much smaller.
Let's see, 10,000 miles at 30 mpg is 333 gallons. At 40 mpg, it's 250 gallons. So you only save about 83 gallons.
Right, much less than the 500 gallons saved going from 10 to 20. The MPG frame obscures this. It makes people underestimate the benefit of replacing real gas guzzlers.
So a better frame would be
Gallons per mile or gallons per 100 miles. That shows the fuel consumption directly and the savings are linear. A small improvement on a very inefficient car shows up as a big saving, as it should. Bad framing costs people money.
wow. Okay, one more bias we have to touch on, anchoring. This one feels almost like magical in its absurdity.
It really does. It shows how easily an arbitrary number can influence our estimates. The classic experiment involved a rigged wheel of fortune.
Rigged how?
It was designed to only stop on two numbers, 10 or 65. So participants spin the wheel, see either 10 or 65, a completely random, meaningless number in this context.
Okay.
Then, immediately after seeing the number, they were asked a totally unrelated question. What percentage of African nations are members of the United Nations?
And the number from the wheel actually affected their answer.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Significantly, people who saw the low anchor, 10, gave an average estimate around 25%, but people who saw the high anchor, 65, gave an average estimate around 45%.
Just from seeing a random number seconds before.
Yes. System 1 grabs onto the anchor, even a ridiculous one, and adjusts from there. But the adjustment is usually insufficient. The initial anchor keeps pulling the estimate towards it. It's incredibly robust.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together. We've got system 1, super fast, intuitive, efficient, but also gullible, prone to biases, loves a good story, easily anchored.
Right. It's the hero, but also the source of many errors.
And then there's system 2, our rational, careful, calculating self. But it's slow, requires effort, gets tired easily, and often just defaults to whatever system 1 suggests.
That's the fundamental tension. System 2 is capable of overriding System 1's mistakes, but it often doesn't bother. It conserves energy.
So the big consequence is that we often make really important choices based not on logic or stats, but on how good the story feels, how strong the intuition is.
Pretty much. The coherence and emotional resonance of the narrative generated by System 1 often trumps careful analysis, which brings us to one last really deep distinction.
Okay.
The difference between the experiencing self and the remembering self.
The person living through something versus the person looking back on it.
Exactly. And they value things very differently. This was shown starkly in experiments involving unpleasant experiences, like the cold hand torture.
Sounds ominous. What was it?
Participants had to keep one hand submerged in painfully cold water. In one condition, they did it for, say, 60 seconds. In another condition, they did the same 60 seconds, plus an extra 30 seconds where the water was still painfully cold, but slightly less so.
So longer overall, but with a slightly better ending.
Precisely. Now, afterwards, they were asked which trial they'd prefer to repeat. Rationally, you'd choose the shorter one, right? Less total pain.
Of course.
But most people chose the longer trial, the one with the slightly less painful ending.
Why on earth would they do that?
Because of how memory works. The remembering self doesn't care much about duration. That's called duration neglect. It heavily weights two things: the moment of peak intensity, good or bad, and how the experience ends, the peak end rule.
So the slightly better ending in the longer trial created a better memory, even though the actual experience involved more total suffering.
Exactly. The remembering self basically writes the story, and it prefers stories with better endings, even if the overall experience was worse. The person making the choice was prioritizing the quality of their future memory over minimizing the actual pain experienced in the moment.
That is profoundly weird. It makes you question everything.
It really does. It leaves us with a final provocative thought. When you make decisions, when you reflect on your life, are you optimizing for the experiencing self, the one living moment to moment? Or are you optimizing for the remembering self, the one constructing the narrative afterwards?
Which self should be in charge? The one living it or the one telling the story?
That's the question to ponder. Which self's well-being are you truly prioritizing when you choose?
That's the end of conversation. Want to go deeper? We've linked the full book and our affiliate link in the description.
And if you just want a quick summary, you can download PDF from the description too.
If you got value, hit subscribe and let us know in the comments what book we should do next.
Thanks for tuning in.